recording. With us today, we have Tobias Spears, and we've asked him here to talk about building community when a lot of us are working remotely. And even if we have to go into the office and have to be on site, certainly our job and the way we think about community has changed. So I want to start by welcoming Tobias. Hi. And
Hello.
Tobias, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I am from Brooklyn, New York. I've been in Chicago for 4 years now. And so I work as Director of Diversity Initiatives in the biological sciences. My role consists of 4 things, which is working with faculty, so minoritized faculty, helping them be successful, helping them get promoted, feel a sense of belonging, and advancing their careers with our grants program. Second is our education piece, which is diversity education. Folks need to be accredited and they need to be talking about diversity. Training grants need to have diversity. So we do programming that responds to those needs. Third is our pipeline initiative. So working with like house staff diversity, PhD, PhD students to ensure a continued diverse workforce. And lastly, staff efforts around diversity and inclusion, which is through the BSD annual operating plan.
I've known you now for a while, and each year getting to know you more and more. And one thing that really across all the roles that you have in the university is you really attend to community. And so I wanted to start our conversation, and maybe you can just share with us why you think community is important, especially now.
When I think about community, I think about it in 2 ways, as a feeling, and the other is as a doing, right? So the feeling is feeling like you're part of something that is bigger than you, something that makes you feel special, an entity that is sort of outside of you. It's feeling like you're part of something. We exist and we're diverse, but we don't always include everyone. In a lot of ways, diversity is inviting everyone to the party, and inclusion is making sure everyone at the party has fun. And I think the reason why in this moment it's so important is because COVID-19, it's a lonely disease. It is a disease in which those inflicted, right, have to be by themselves, and those who don't want to be inflicted have to be by themselves. It unearths in us all types of angst and anxieties about community. And I think the important part there is that although community can be very nourishing, there is also a part of community that's scary. As you get to know people, your community may change, or people may die. You may fall out with people. The big thing we keep hearing is social distance from each other. And what that means is that it puts right in the fore what community is, and that we need to somehow stop that, which is why lots of folks have been saying, rather than social distancing, we talk about physical distancing, so that we can psychically keep that social component, because that's important for all of us. Watching some of the news outlets, listening to people say that it's painful watching people suffer alone, right? Because typically when people are sick or ill, there's folks around them to comfort them or to just be there in their last moments. COVID is a thing that you sort of have to grieve from a distance.
You know, just what about the flip side? What are our opportunities, and what are just some ways that we can maybe even access our best selves, our undiscovered selves in the midst of what we're being asked to do?
One of the things that's important that I've been hearing a lot of people say is that, let me just take everything I was doing and just put it online. That is probably not going to work. We need to give a different kind of attention to switching over to another method of communicating and sort of being present at work. We need to always keep that in mind. Things are going to be different for different people, because we have folks on our team who are introverts, folks who are extroverts, folks who are sort of in between. And with that, it's important to know that not everyone will respond to your ideas about building community simply because you have had this idea about building community. There is a type of buy-in that develops when you're in person. I'm not just immediately your best friend, or immediately you don't just trust my ideas. It takes time to get used to that. And that may also be the case for shifting some of these community building initiatives to a platform like Zoom. We've been using our Facebook page to highlight some of the virtual tours that have been happening for free at some of the, really prominent museums throughout the world, really. It allows you to sit down, connect your laptop to maybe your big screen TV, if you have one, and maybe, go for a stroll through the Louvre or go for a stroll through the Guggenheim. The other thing I've been seeing people do is sharing recipes. A lot of people have taken up cooking and baking in this moment. Those recipes don't always have to be about indulgence. This may be the perfect time for that person to do meal prep. Something that was really popular going on Instagram by D Nice, who was a rapper in the early 90s. It was called Club Quarantine, and it was basically him DJing in his Los Angeles living room, and he sent the invite to some friends. They came over, he put it on Instagram, and before you knew it, 200 and 300,000 people were following him, including folks like Michelle Obama, Joe Biden, folks creating a virtual party, a virtual club during, this COVID crisis. That was really cool. And it was really something that was powerful for Black folks in particular, because what happened was when we get together around music in particular, or around church. Everybody who I know who was in Club Quarantine was talking about that it felt good to be like at the Black barbecue, something that sort of represented community. One of the things that I think we are going to learn about, which we haven't, is how has COVID impacted communities in different ways, especially along the lines of race and class. And I don't look forward to learning about it. So Uno Online, I picked Uno because that's one of my favorite games, but Uno Online is a thing you can just play with folks. There's other games you could play too. So storytelling is also a big thing in communities who oftentimes find themselves minoritized, right? Because storytelling is about sort of sharing your particular experience with a thing that maybe has happened, whether that thing be good or bad. I've seen people doing storytelling over Zoom, over other online platforms, but it's powerful in this moment because lots of people are slowing down and listening. And so we could use this as a moment to tell our story. So virtual coffee dates, this to me is us not changing the particular routine of being social with people. It is, I was gonna invite Candace to go get coffee on Thursday to talk about something, to catch up on my dating life. And so I'm gonna still do that. I'm gonna still invite Candace to do that. And we can make our own coffee and we can just sit in our living rooms and have a conversation. The other way I think you can create community is by doing different backgrounds. Folks have been using their favorite pictures. They've been showing pictures of them as children and using that as a background for folks as we, start meetings. The first thing is, this is the background someone has. Let's talk about this. That goes also into your favorite photo and a personal artifact. You are home, right? So there may be something in your home that is special to you that you might want to share and show people. And then Netflix and Chat is a service through Netflix. And basically it is watching a film with friends and being able to see each other and chat as you watch the film.
That sounds interesting. I didn't know about that.
Yeah. And then lastly is Zoom Pictionary, which is using the features of Zoom to actually play a game. There's actually a whiteboard feature. And so I could draw something as you all guess what I'm drawing, right?
Cat, animal, dog.
Right, look, exactly. And my drawing isn't that good.
Oh boy, okay.
It is something that is actually fun when there's multiple people on the call and when someone actually knows how to draw.
Well, it's the process, not the outcome, right? That's
exactly. So I think the last thing is things to keep in mind. So I mentioned before I started the last slide that it's important that we understand that community is not the same for everyone because it's both a feeling and a doing. We feel differently, we experience feelings differently, and we do things differently. And so Some people have to warm up, whereas some people just jump right in. Also keep in mind that to just do a shift in your mind that it's physical distancing rather than social distancing. And this will allow you to really still understand that you can have a social life. You can talk on the phone. You can do Zoom. You can see people walking outside as you do your run. But the idea is to not be near people physically. The other thing is the importance of touch. I was on Facebook the other day. I saw a friend who said, I'm touch starved. And so I was like, oh, it's interesting. And so Candace and I have been conversing about doing your own massages as you talk to people, or using essential oils, or, as you wash your hands and put lotion on, right? Feel yourself and stimulate yourself if you like touch.
It snaps in the air to that. I think that, we have good smelling lotion, and we have both the ability within ourselves to give and receive touch. So we can kind of maximize that and remind ourselves that we can do that for ourselves.
Community is also livelihood. We talked about that. For some folks, just hunkering down doesn't feel like a big thing, right? I just go home, I'm with my children or I'm with my partner, whereas there are some people who live alone. There are some people who their community has been more to them than just people who they were around. That community could have been their nourishment, been their financial support, been their emotional support. And being physically distant from that can impact people in different ways. Those people are not just abstract. Those are also folks we work with. So as you engage people on your team or in your life, understand that people are responding differently to having to not be near folks. What does being virtual allow you to do now? Oftentimes we think about, how do I create a difference between sort of my personal communications with my friends and my professional communications? Because oftentimes we spend so much of our virtual life being informal, whereas our virtual life at work is email lots of times. So this is an opportunity to really begin to make those distinctions by creating an area of your space that you could focus on work, putting a background behind you that makes you think about the fact that I'm at work, so I have to respond in this way. It also gives you a chance and a time to work on your communication in terms of presenting your ideas and yourself through email or through some sort of spoken medium that maybe you weren't allowed to do before. I have been in leadership meetings talking to leaders that I probably would not have gotten the chance to talk to had we not been in this moment of COVID-19. It's allowing me to get my name out there. It's allowing me to present my ideas. It's allowing me to talk about the importance of diversity and inclusion as not being a luxury, but as being a central component. The other day I was on a chat with the president of the university, and the first thing Dr. Zimmer talked about was community, right? And so this is an opportunity really to flex the might and the power of diversity and inclusion, because we spend so much time creating an inclusive environment that this is the time when we can see how that actualizes. We can see, how that comes together and the importance of that. Right? Because I think you sometimes don't recognize the importance of diversity and inclusion until you don't see it, until you are away from it. Lastly, those who have been excluded now being included, and those always included now feeling excluded. And this is really in reference to some of the ways our personalities develop, right? I think you may be someone who is an extrovert who has always sort of owned the room, right, in person. And now you may not feel that as you navigate Zoom. It may be the introvert who is comfortable sitting behind the screen, who is comfortable being distant from folks, who now shines. So that's also a thing to keep in mind, because you may have people that you work with that now, now they're sort of coming out of their shells, and other people are being more reserved. And it's an opportunity, I think, to learn about how people sort of walk and sit in the world.
And about yourself as well. I think you can kind of feel out the edges of unexplored parts of yourself. My personal mantra has been opportunity in the crisis. And some of that opportunity is to explore parts of yourself. Like, oh, I feel uncomfortable using Zoom. I wonder why that is. And how can I work and lean into that discomfort? Oh, Tobias, this has been so great. Thank you so much for sharing with us. I'm going to ask for our specialist to share out a quote or something personal that can kind of leave us with something to reflect on.
I have a quote, and the quote is, "We are not called on to be successful. We are called on to do our best." For me, that's a grounding quote. It is a quote that says to you that you are enough. And it's a quote that says to me, I am enough. And I'd like to leave you all with that.
That's beautiful. That's so amazing. So I want to thank you for your time. Tobias, you're amazing. And everyone that tuned in, you are amazing. And thank you for all the work that you're doing, wherever you're doing it from. Please leave any comments about this conversation, either in the chat or you can email us, and we'll put our contact information up on the screen. And we'll see you here next week. So thank you and have a great week, everybody. Take care.